Well, guys, we're almost done. You're getting ready to take the AP World exam. So let's get a little review in before you do. As you know, you need to get a 3, 4, or a 5 out of 5 on the exam to be considered to have a passing score. So let's get you to the point where you can do that. Now, of course, we are not going to be able to actually relearn or even review everything from the whole year. However, we will do our best to review both content and skills. This particular presentation will deal with the skills. So let's get started with testing strategies and skills that you need for the upcoming exam. Let's get everyone some college credit, shall we? Some of this might seem really basic, but it's never a bad idea to quickly review the basics. So for those of you who are thinking, come on, Mrs. Hudson, just let us get to it already, make sure you aren't too cocky. If you are, you're going to get tripped up by something innocuous, so don't let that happen. Okay, so the first thing you need to make sure you review are the world regions as defined by the College Board, or AP Central. The biggest mistake people make is writing an essay, or an SAQ, about the wrong region. Unfortunately, it actually happens a lot. When I read an essay about interregional trade in Afro-Eurasia at the AP reading, and it was an essay about trade in the Atlantic, I couldn't award any points. It doesn't answer the prompt, even if it was a really great essay. The same mistake can be made on multiple choice questions too, if they're about a specific region. The number one mistake is the Asias: East Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia. I have yet to see a specific Central Asian question, but still be aware of that location too. Another mistake often comes from West Africa versus East Africa, with people trying to slide in the Swahili coast or Mali or Ghana or something like that into the wrong African region. So, in order to be successful, know your AP World regions. The next thing you must be aware of is periodization. Now, not every essay, SAQ, or multiple choice question will follow this periodization model. In fact, sometimes people are so into this particular periodization model that they're not able to see where it falls short. This chart, and what we've been doing all year long, is reflective of the AP World periodization chart you see here. AP US and AP Euro also have a chart like this, but obviously theirs are different from ours. Period 1 is beginning of man to early civilizations. Period 2 is the classical societies of Greece, Rome, Persia, Mauryan and Gupta India, and Qin and Han China. Period 3, or 600 to 1450, is trade and interactions before Columbus. Period 4 would start with the Columbian Exchange up through the Enlightenment. Period 5 is the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution through 1900, or right before World War I, and period 6 is basically World War I to the present. We broke those down into regions throughout the year too, but when you get an essay prompt, SAQ, or multiple choice question, it will likely refer to these large trends in any region. Also, remember that one of the types of essays is the periodization essay. That essay asks you to determine if an event is a turning point in history, or whether the characteristics of an era are unique to just that era. So be very aware of these dates and what causes them to break this periodization chart the way they do. Okay, so once you've got your regions and your periodization down, you'd better understand the official format of the test to do well. So let's just take a brief look at that. There are two sections to the test, with a break in the middle of 10 to 15 minutes. The first section is the multiple choice and short answer sections together. So there's no break between those except for switching answer booklets. First up is the multiple choice. It's 55 minutes with 55 questions. Hopefully you've become used to that type of timing this year, since we have a 44-minute class period and most of our tests are around 40 to 42 questions, including several stimulus-based multiple choice questions. Remember that you must use a pencil on the multiple choice section. Seriously, use a pencil, don't use a pen. Also, remember that strategy-wise, there's no penalty for guessing, so make sure you fill in every single bubble. After your 55 minutes are up, you'll switch gears to writing the SAQs. There will be a 50-minute period for you to answer those. You must use blue or black ink on this section. Remember, no pencil. And remember that you must stay in the box provided. Remember also that each question has 3 parts and therefore 3 points to earn. 3 points for each section gives you a total of 12 possible points to earn on this section. Section 1 altogether is worth 60% of your overall exam score. Multiple choice is worth 40, while the short answer is worth 20. Next, you'll have a 10 or 15-minute break to use the bathroom, eat a snack, and have some water. You won't be allowed to eat or drink during the exam, as spilled water bottle would be disaster, but you can eat and drink during the break, so make sure you bring something. Probably not coffee or anything else that's going to run through you really quickly. Then you'll sit back down and embark on the hand-cramping task of writing 2 essays, one DBQ and one LEQ. Remember, no pencil, only use blue or black ink pens. The proctor won't split up the time or force you to stop and put your pens down until the very end, so you are expected to write both essays in the 90 minutes allotted and pace yourself accordingly. You get 15 minutes of plan time, which I heartily recommend you use wisely and to the fullest, but they won't force you to use that 15 minutes for planning. It's all lumped together, so technically you could start writing right away. Now, of course, I don't recommend that though. Then the official breakdown after that 15 minutes of planning is 40 minutes for the DBQ and 35 minutes for the LEQ. Now, is that realistic? Probably not. Most people take 45 to 50 minutes for the DBQ, leaving 20 to 25 for the LEQ, which is fine. Remember that there is no choice for the DBQ, while there is for the LEQ. You'll have a choice of 2, so pick wisely on that LEQ. The DBQ is worth 25% of the overall score out of 5, while the LEQ is worth 15%. Make sure you at least attempt both though. Don't take all of your time on the DBQ thinking that, oh well, the LEQ isn't worth that much. Make sure you at least write an essay of some type, even if you start running out of time. So here are some extra things to know about this year's exam. First, the College Board is going to use some of your questions for diagnostic purposes, most likely 2 sets of stimulus-based multiple choice questions, or 6 questions, as well as 1 SAQ set. Those won't be scored in your score. They'll just be used to determine how hard or easy the exams are. So your actual score will be out of 49 on the multiple choice and out of 9 on the SAQs. Here's the thing though, you don't know which ones they're choosing, so that means answer everything to the best of your ability. With that said though, you can kind of break down how much certain things are worth on the exam by this chart, made for you by Mr. Hudson. For some of you, it might be a wake-up call to get studying, and for others of you, it might allow you to freak out a little less, knowing that if you don't get all of the multiple choice, it's not the end of your score. Okay, so let's break down the sections just a little bit. First, the multiple choice. These questions and the stimulus that go with them should be in relative chronological order, but I can't guarantee that. The multiple choice guide I printed for you from Tom Ritchie should be very helpful. Basically, you've probably already noticed from the practice exam and our own exams that sometimes the stimulus is essential to answering the questions, and other times it's not necessary at all. So sometimes teachers say that you should look at the questions first to see if they can be answered without the stimulus. Then, of course, if they're needed, you go for it. I think you have enough time to read and contemplate the stimulus and the questions, but if you are a slow reader, this might be a good strategy for you. As you probably already know, the stimulus-based questions will test several levels of your intellect. First, it tests content knowledge, of course. Second, it tests your own understanding and comprehension of the questions and the stimulus. Third, it tests your ability to reason, your intellectual capacity and intuition. So it's a test that is more than just knowledge. It's all about finding patterns, connections, continuities, and changes. But you've hopefully felt that we've been practicing that all year long and you're ready for it. Again, I must reiterate that there's no penalty for guessing, so fill in those bubbles. Be aware when there's 1 minute left and just go to town, if you're not all the way done yet. Now, one of the tests of your intuition and ability to reason is the distractor options on the test. They will try to trip you up, generally in 3 ways. First, they'll try to have something that's out of the time frame of the question, so that's when your periodization knowledge comes in very handy. Second, they'll try to get you to pick something that is irrelevant to the question. This is most often an actually accurate statement, factually accurate, but it just has nothing to do with the question itself. Then, of course, there's the straight up wrong answer that is either a false statement, inaccurate information, or something like that. Now, those you can automatically throw out. Also, be wary of the stuff that's wrong time frame or irrelevant but accurate. Those are more likely to trip up this class than a blatantly wrong answer, because you guys are smarties. Also, one thing to watch out for is absolutes. Were all classical societies doing something? Was nobody doing something? Those absolutes, all, none, everyone, no one, are definitely things to watch out for, as those are usually, again not always, but usually not the answer that you should pick. Let's use this question as an example. Let's start with the answers at the bottom. Let's start with D. D is a distractor about nuclear weaponry. It tries to trip you up with the psychological trauma portion, which is true. But the fact that the stimulus are both made in the 1920s mean that nuclear cannot be an option. This is actually the most likely picked distractor. It's a pretty decent distractor. Next, if you go with C, C is accurate in the 1900s. Japan is becoming increasingly imperialistic, but that has nothing to do with the question or the stimulus that are there. So that one falls into the irrelevant category. B is about something related to the time frame, but it's a result instead of a cause. So it has nothing to do with the stimulus, and is instead a result of the war itself and everybody going home. So it's about something related to the time frame, but not the question or the stimulus. So that leaves A as the right answer, with the idea that the Industrial Revolution in the late 19th century contributed to the bombs, the shells, the machine guns, etc., that made the Western Front so traumatizing and introduced shell shock to the world. The second part of Section 1 is the SAQ. Now, all of the multiple choice will be put together with a stimulus, but only some of the SAQs will be. They will generally follow the format of identify and explain, or identify and briefly explain, but that isn't always the case. Those are the examples we have as teachers, but they could vary from that. Remember that these are not essays. They are actually short answers. They're not meant to be long-winded, so you're not writing a thesis statement and then going to town. The traditional AP acronym for this is to ACE the SAQs. A is for answer, answer the question it's asking. C is for cite specific historical information to back yourself up. And then explain. E is explain how that evidence backs you up. So it tends to be, as we've practiced, a 3-sentence endeavor. One sentence to answer, another to give evidence, then a last sentence to tie the evidence to your answer. One thing that you must be is explicit. Explicit means that it is stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for confusion or doubt. You must make it easy to understand, clear and straightforward. No dancing around, no flowery language. Just make it happen. Get your thoughts on the paper and answer the question fully. As Mr. Hudson says to his students, do a little cheer for yourself. Be explicit. Be explicit. If it's not, the reader cannot give you full points. We are not allowed to guess at what you meant. Of course, you've also noticed that the format is an A, B, C format. Since there's 3 parts to each question, there's A, B, and C. There's always 3 parts to every question. Now, they may lump 2 together, like have A, B identify and explain 2 reasons for yada yada. But that's still 2 things, and then B would ask for 1. So again, there will always be 3 parts to an SAQ. They're always worth 3 points. A point for part 1, a point for part 2, a point for part 3. It is all or nothing for each of those points. I've been grading it often out of 6, so you can see if you've done a good job of identifying but not explaining. But the College Board awards no partial points. You've got to do the whole thing to get a point for A, a point for B, and a point for C. Also, remember that you cannot go outside of the box. Stay in the box. Anything outside of that box will not be graded. Okay, so are you overwhelmed yet? Hopefully not. But stay tuned for the next video, which I will do on the essays, DBQs and LEQs. And of course, get started on your studying. Begin reviewing content. Go to your review book or your notes packets and get started. You do not want to wait until next week to start studying, as it will not sink in. I know you've got other tests, exams, projects, other things going on. This is not your only class, but try to give yourself 15 to 20 minutes of content review per night. You will be happy that you did.